Welcome back to Two Marks and a Spark. This is going to basically be a Raw post show this week because
Yes.
Raw literally ended like 20 minutes ago. It is 5 o'clock Central, March 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day. You're probably seeing this the day after, but happy St. Patrick's Day anyway. And Russ, we had Raw at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. This was
Right.
strange.
Live from Brussels, Belgium.
And I see why they wanted this show to be live.
Uh-huh.
I get it. But Russ, first, we need to talk about last week a little bit. I thought Dynamite was fine, if a little uh, unconsequential compared to what it should have been.
Yes.
SmackDown was basically just a 3 hour pre show for tonight's Raw.
It really, really was. It felt like it was just promo heavy and action light. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what SmackDown is now. Uh, and
Yeah, and
then
it doesn't. If that's what they're going to be, then they sure as heck don't need to stay at 3 hours.
they're not going to. They're going back down to two in, I believe, May.
I
So we'll
have I
see.
have approve of that.
Uh, on this episode of SmackDown, however, we did get new WWE tag team belts.
Yes, we did. That was the one interesting thing. I must say that I thought that Private Party they actually look pretty good in the ring. They're
What,
very
the Street
competent
Profits?
wrestlers.
You said the Private Party. I think you meant the Street Profits.
I'm sorry. That's I've done that before. Street Profits is what I meant to say. Wrong company, wrong team. Sorry.
Well, at any rate, they win the new tag title, the new tag belts, which is just a carryover from the old tag belts. It's just another redesign. But the funny part about it was they released a video game on Friday. They also released new championship belts, immediately making the game they just put out for $70 outdated
Yeah. Well,
in record time.
that is record time.
Like, hey, we have this shiny new product we're going to force down your throat for the next month. Oh, it's already outdated. Would you look at that?
Like it's almost like one part of the corporation is not in communication with this other part of the corporation to coordinate these things.
Okay, if you Russ, they spend a lot of money on this game. Okay, every
Oh,
year
they do.
they spend a lot of money on this game. Now they make a lot of money on it too, but they spend a lot. How much do you think? How much heat do you suspect they'll get for this tag belt disaster?
Oh, they'll get some from the game players for sure, I would imagine.
Well, that's a majority of their viewing audience now
Sure.
is people who play video games, which is why the video game is so successful and why they keep doing it.
Obviously.
But they're going to get heat for this. So the onus is kind of going to be on 2K to update the belts. We'll see if they do it. My bet, they won't. They'll say, tough luck, losers, buy next year's game. Anyway, we're moving on.
That's right.
Raw was live in Brussels, Belgium this afternoon, and I say that intentionally.
Well, it's good to know that there's something. Belgium is good for something other than good beer. They got the second best beer in the world, second only
That
to
being
Mexico.
at, at any rate, this whole show flew by in an instant, it felt like. Credit to them for realizing they were in a shitty spot back home and loading this show up and making people want to watch it. Credit to them for that. This show kicked off with John Cena coming out to his old entrance music.
Yes.
By old, I mean the same entrance music he's been using for 20 fucking years. And the same t shirt that he's been wearing, just a different color,
Can't
and
see
themed
me.
for Belgium. And themed for Belgium.
Yes.
And he looks exactly the same, which was underwhelming to say the bare minimum. And he walks out. and doesn't say anything for about 18 minutes. Um,
It just seemed to go on forever. Crowd definitely
basically,
was hostile,
he cut the most complex "you people" promo you've ever heard in your life.
which I don't understand the motivation. His motivation for turning the heel does not make any sense to me.
He's internalizing all the people that booed him in the 2010s. That's
Well,
what's happening.
the people that helped make him,
Anyway, the crowd was chanting, among other things, "fuck you, Cena," and "shut the fuck up."
right?
He was getting the MJF treatment uh, on his
He was
own damn
talking
show,
about
no less.
retirement, and they started singing the "Na Na Hey Hey" song.
Yes, that was fucking brilliant. Anyway, Cena proceeds to cut the most slow, ambling promo he's cut in about 5 years. And finally, Cody Rhodes comes out and saves this whole fucking segment,
Yeah,
really,
he did,
because
and he did it very quickly and succinctly.
the crowd helped this segment a lot. Cody coming out and saying, "I've heard enough," fixed this segment's problems, which was that it was so damn long. And Cody basically came out and said, "John, what the hell are you talking about? You're an idiot. This isn't you. Bring the real John Cena to WrestleMania or you're dead." And then he left.
Yeah, he said, "I want to wrestle. I want to wrestle John Cena, not this whiny bitch." Pointing at him there.
And Cody left very quickly. John took about as long as he could to walk up the ramp.
Yes.
He did. I'm not sure if he wanted to be there, but he was certainly there for a long time.
Yeah.
We then had probably the best match of the night, which was Penta and Ludwig Kaiser. This match was awesome.
I haven't seen Ludwig Kaiser have a bad match ever. I'm sure he's
I
had one, but I haven't seen it.
I could not believe the amount of people that were down on Ludwig Kaiser on the internet. There are people saying WWE should release him. I'm like,
Oh no,
what?
no, no.
Who are you watching? Because that's not Ludwig.
I
You're
think
watching the
he's a
wrong guy.
fantastic wrestler.
And
I think he needs a singles push, apart from his association with Gunther.
I think his gimmick will hold him back slightly if they want to singles push him, but they can always change that. Like
They
they
can
can
tweak
alter
it.
that.
They might have to Americanize him just a little bit. You know what I mean?
They might have to babyface turn him, but I
That
don't
would
know.
be an interesting challenge.
He's such a natural heel, though. It's kind of like Gunther trying to turn babyface. It just doesn't.
Right.
They did it in NXT and it
Right.
didn't really work. Anyway,
That reminds me. I saw a great picture online of Gunther with his father and grandfather standing there together having a beer. And other than them being shorter, they look just, I mean, just exactly alike. All three generations. He's just about 3 or 4 feet taller. He looks like he's about 3 or 4 feet taller than them. Probably about a couple feet taller.
well, we'll
Very
talk more
impressive.
about the World Heavyweight Championship and the amount of trouble I think it's in later.
Yes.
At any rate, this Penta Ludwig match was incredible. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Do yourself a service. Go on Netflix and
I
watch.
was waiting for an appearance by the mysterious mystery luchador, but he didn't show up yet. We had to wait for him a little bit later.
So anyway, Penta gets the win with a nasty looking Penta driver on a chair.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
that looked horrendous, but had so much effect. Kaiser is fine, I think,
Yeah.
and Penta gets the win. This was awesome. They're
Yeah, I
letting
think it
Penta
probably
do
was best match of the show.
they're letting Penta do Cerro Miedo now, which is incredible. They're just letting him do it. He doesn't have it in his name, but they're letting him do Cerro Miedo, like when he makes his entrance and stuff, which they weren't doing at first.
Right.
So,
Well, that I didn't think anything about it because WWE has a history of shortening, either completely changing people's names or shortening them.
and by proxy, usually making them worse. We then get Damage Control in the back. They're Dakota Kai's getting ready for her match.
Right.
Russell's was very into Dakota Kai. I mean,
Yes, very
incredibly
much.
into Dakota Kai. Uh, they go to commercial. They come back, and Liv says, "Good luck, Finn." Blah 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 blah. Finn and Dom have a mini blow up after Dom suggests they should ask Penta to join the Judgment Day. I laughed really hard at
Yeah.
this because this was the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Imagine if they actually did this. And legitimately, I sat there in my chair thinking for about 5 minutes about how mad I would be if they actually put Penta in the fucking Judgment Day. Sorry, the husk
Yeah.
that they are now calling the Judgment Day.
Well, I don't think they will do it.
No, not
That'd
with
be a
what
bad
WWE
move.
has
I
shown.
think what they ought to do is bring in when they can, they ought to bring in his old partner.
They're going
Was it
to.
Phoenix? Is that his name?
They're going to.
Well,
At
yeah,
any rate,
because they were one of the few teams. It surprised me in AEW. It seemed like they were very, very over, but very also very underused.
does that remind you of anyone?
Yeah, it
Uh,
reminds me of a lot of people in AEW.
what's his name? Jay White or
Yes.
FTR. We'll talk about AEW in a minute.
Well,
Anyway,
I understand from what I read too. Speaking of Jay White, Juice Robinson, he's still going to be out for quite a while longer. He's hurt really bad.
I don't doubt it from
Yeah.
everything I've heard. So Dakota Kai and Ivy Nile had a sneaky, really good match here.
Right. And Ivy Nile has improved a lot too, I think.
Well, Ivy's always been good. It's Dakota who's gotten better. Um,
I agree.
and Dakota Kai absolutely kills it in this match. The crowd was completely behind her.
Yes. She's one now. I wasn't really into her at first, but over the months, she's won my respect because she's such a good wrestler.
And Dakota Kai, anybody that thinks, oh, they're just letting her languish in the mid card, for now they are. They're waiting for something here. And you can tell by the amount of singles matches, whether she's winning or losing, she gets on TV and the amount of time they get. Like they're gonna push this. They're gonna push
Sure.
her. They're gonna push Ivy too.
Uh-huh.
Both of these two are getting a push, probably this year. Like they're probably both gonna win the IC title this year. So, you know, don't think they're just leaving these two in the mid card. That's not gonna last for long.
Yes.
Uh, we then had a contract signing abruptly. I don't know if they announced this. I don't care. This
Right.
happened very abruptly. EO's music hits. Here she comes. And then here comes Bianca. And the most predictable thing possible happens here because Adam Pearce says two signatures in this document becomes official. At that moment, you know there's
Right.
going to be more than two signatures on this piece of paper. And they're going to do a triple threat, which
Correct. You can
if you
see it
didn't see
coming.
if you didn't see that coming 2 weeks ago when EO won the title, congratulations. You officially don't know how professional wrestling works. I hate to break it to you. Uh,
Yep, we're definitely going to get that three-way.
EO and Bianco quickly signed the contracts, and that's when you knew they were waiting for something. And here comes Rhea, and she is madder than hell. I mean, she is just pissed off. Security comes running after her. Uh, she thought about killing them, decided not to. And she probably could have with one hand.
Yeah.
Uh, And she walks in the ring, says, I'm in the match, basically, is what she says, signs the contract, and walks away. And Adam Pierce looked like he needed so many drinks.
Hmm.
Like he looked like he needed to be drunk on a beach in Maui right then and there.
Yeah, I hear you.
And Pierce's reaction to Rhea's music was so good. I don't know if you caught this. When Rhea's music hit, you could see Pierce say, "Oh God damn it."
Yeah.
Pierce is so good.
Oh, yeah. Out of anybody that's ever had that role, that character of the Raw General Manager, I like Adam Pearce far and away the best.
He's so funny, and it's sometimes so unintentional.
That's right. And
Any
the poor guy gets stressed and, I need a drink. I said, dude, you
anyway,
probably need two drinks.
Jay Uso comes out. He makes the longest entrance of all time. This entrance went on and on. And I know they went to break in the middle of this, but I didn't get an ad break here. So if for me, it was just Michael
Yeah,
Cole and Corey Graves fucking yeeting. And I was like, yeet me out a window. This sucks. Uh,
it really gets, I'm tired of it. I just am tired of it.
I'm not sick of Jay. I'm not sick of Yeet.
Right.
I'm sick of the long ass entrances.
Me too. And in general, I think this is becoming more of a problem in WWE. It was mainly on their PLEs, but now it's showing up on their weekly programs with these 5 minute entrances and shit. I
Do you
don't
know?
like them.
Do you know why it seems worse on weekly TV now? Because
Why is
they're on
that?
Netflix, and at least for me, I only get like one commercial a show. Every
Right,
other time they fade for a break, I don't get a commercial. So normally the longer entrances that you wouldn't see, you're seeing because you're not always
right.
going to commercial with everybody
Whereas I
else.
get the cheaper package, so I get the ads, but that gives me a chance to go pee or whatever.
Yeah. Well, anyway, next we had a Jey Uso squash match. Never thought I'd say that in my life. Jey Uso spears Austin Theory, and that's it. That's
That was over
legitimately.
fast. I wonder if that got cut for time because of the opening segment.
I wonder if it got cut for time because they were going to do more with the main event and decided not to. Because that's kind
Yeah,
of what it felt like.
yeah.
Anyway, after this, we get a whole bunch of recap packages, and then Rhea and Adam Pierce are having the most passionate
Interesting
argument.
discussion. A lively discussion.
They are having a lively one. And Rhea basically tells him, because Pierce is pissed, because he's like, you just fucked up my night one main event. What the fuck is wrong with you? And Rhea's like, actually, I made it better. You're welcome. This is legally binding, by the way. Go fuck yourself, is basically what she said. And then she
Yeah.
gave him the contract. Then we had the Creed brothers versus Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee. This got set up earlier in the night with a really bad backstage segment.
Yes. They're all, yeah. I don't really, I like the wrestling. I can't say I'm a huge fan of the Creed brothers on the microphone.
Yeah, it's not great right now. Could get better though. Gable is great. That's why Gable works with them because Gable is so good at everything.
Yes.
Uh,
But
this
you
match
got
is.
to remember now, Gable, he's gone. And in his place, we have this mystery luchador.
Don't get me started on that fucking angle. Um, I hate that fucking angle. I hope you know that. I hate that angle with a passion. I think this is the dumbest thing they've ever done with Chad Gable. No, Shorty G was dumber. I take
Yeah,
that
I
back.
think, yeah, Shorty.
He's not even that short. Anyway,
That's right.
this was over fairly fast as they had a schmaz at the finish.
Yes.
Uh, the Creed brothers were made to look absolutely ridiculous here. This match actually kind of made me mad.
Right.
Uh, Ray wins with a
See,
6-1
because that
power
doesn't
attack.
make sense to me. When I just look at it, I look at the Latino, what is it, the Latino
World
World
Order.
Order versus the Creed brothers. I think the only credible, believable match for me is to have the Creed brothers win. They're the ones from the amateur background. They ought to be able to easily beat a couple of flip flop flyers from Mexico.
You would think, but who knows?
Yeah.
After this, we get an attack from the mystery luchador. Fuck
Yeah.
this angle.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of goofy. Hey, this is the goofiest thing they've done since Hulk Hogan was Mr. America.
I don't know, dude. Lord Tensai was pretty fucking goofy.
Oh, I've
Brodus
forgotten about that. I've forgotten that one.
Brodus Clay happened.
Funkasaurus.
What the fuck? Do you remember when they put him and Tensai in a tag team?
Yes,
Do you remember? I did they win the tag titles? I think they did.
it's possible. That's an era where there's an awful lot of WWE that we'd like to forget altogether because that was during the worst years of the Vincent Kennedy McMahon era, you might say. The dying days.
Okay, so I had to look it up. Brodus Clay and Tensai never won the titles, but do you want to know what their name was?
I can't remember.
Tons of Funk.
Oh, tons of funk. I had totally forgotten that.
Me too. I had to look it up. We're
And
on
wasn't Naomi one of the two girls that danced with him? Naomi, and I forget the name of the other gal. She's been long gone.
she was in AEW. People forget that. That chick was in AEW. I don't remember her name.
Yeah, I can't either.
I think it was
But that
Cameron.
Brodus Clay, yeah,
It's Tyrus, who
Tyrus, right?
sucks. Who
Yes,
sucks.
yeah, and he was the last one of the last NWA champions.
He still is, I believe, an NWA champion right now, I think.
I think it's from what I hear that company's kind of in limbo.
Any company run by Billy Corgan is in limbo.
Yeah, that's very possible.
Like, listen, dude, Billy Corgan, th- people forget that Nick Aldis left because Billy Corgan got way too obsessive with everything. And Nick Aldis said, this isn't what I want to do anymore. I'm going to go somewhere else. Billy Corgan got butthurt about it. And because Aldis had a time frame where he was allowed to give his notice, he gave his notice within that time frame, and Corgan completely went off the rail.
Hmm.
At any rate, Mystery Luchador attacks Dragon Lee and Rey Mysterio. This is headed for a 6-man tag at WrestleMania, and I really hope it's not.
Well, they got 2 nights. They gotta fill it up with something. I'm sure that'll
They
probably be one of the offerings.
they go to commercial, comeback. Seth Rollins is in the ring. The crowd is chanting CM Punk basically the entire time. CM Punk was not in Belgium tonight, and that made the crowd very angry,
That's right.
understandably. And Seth says, we'll talk about Punk in a minute. I want to talk about Roman Reigns. He meanders on for a while and goes on to say that he'll be on SmackDown Friday to greet Roman Reigns and CM Punk at the door.
Right. He's going to mosey on down to Italy.
If Do we think Roman Reigns turns on Paul Heyman Friday? Do we think it happens Friday, or do you think they wait till Mania?
Or do you think Heyman turns on Roman?
I think that's the more likely thing, and I think it could
Yeah.
happen at Mania. I don't think they're
All
going
right.
to do that on a SmackDown. I think they'll do that on a Mania.
Just save it for Mania, probably. Yeah.
By the way, if I had to guess right now, the night one main event is probably going to be the women's triple threat. If I had to guess,
That sounds
because
about right.
everybody's like, no, it's going to be Gunther J. I'm like, dude, Gunther J has no build. They're not going
Not
to have that.
really. It just doesn't feel like it's. It just doesn't feel right, does it?
No, it's just another WrestleMania match at this point. I mean, it's just another match, really, at this point. But anyway, Seth announces he's going to Italy on Friday for SmackDown, asks the crowd to sing his song. They cooperated, and he left
Yes.
very quickly, thankfully. That we then get an AJ Styles interview. This was awkward.
Yeah, I didn't see all of
Styles,
this. I didn't see all of this.
well, he starts out by saying Logan Paul doesn't belong on the WWE roster. AJ Styles finally says something I agree with. Then Karrion Kross comes in and says, basically, the are you sure you're not just a bitter veteran line? And Styles kind of gruffs him and they snarl at each other and Styles walks away. And then we get a very good main event, but a main event that had no chance when compared to last week. Finn Balor and Braun Breaker for the Intercontinental Championship.
Yes.
Russ, last
I,
Raw's
I
main,
I I wanted Finn Balor to win this, but I knew it was not going to happen.
but Russ, considering how great last week's main event was with Punk and Seth in the cage, and how great that entire match was,
Right.
these bastards never had a chance, did they?
Not really, not compared. No, they did. They did a good. It was a good match. It's just that in comparison, people are going to compare it. Yeah, it wasn't anywhere near as good.
The finish came when Dominic and Carlito had come down. They try to interfere to help Finn. Finn ends up getting roped in the balls.
Yeah.
Um, and this sets up his demise. Braun wins with a spear. Dominic and Carlito inadvertently distract Finn. Spear from Braun Breaker. 1, 2, 3. That's it. Braun retains the title. They go about 25 minutes all told. 20,
Right.
25, somewhere in there. And they have about the best match they could, considering Braun's limitations. And Finn just not being Finn Balor of 5 years ago, he can't quite go like he used to. That happens
Right.
to everybody.
Sure.
Now, Finn Balor has not really lost a step in any significant way, but, you know, there's probably stuff he can't do anymore. Russ, overall, I thought Raw was very good today.
Yeah.
When you consider the time slot they were forced into, they didn't want to do this show pre-taped because they had the John Cena Cody Rhodes angle starting the show. They didn't want to
Right.
pre-tape this. And Netflix didn't want a pre-taped show.
Right.
So they did it live.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to watch it tonight on the usual time, it's available.
It's right there. You could rewatch it right now if you wanted to. I don't know why you'd want to rewatch a Raw you just finished watching, but to each their own. Some people like to watch that
Good.
stuff twice. Russ, let's talk about Dynamite this Wednesday. The big thing announced for it. We're getting a rematch 2 weeks later of a match they just sold us on pay-per-view for $50. Adam Copeland versus John Moxley for the world title in a street fight.
Right.
Why are we doing this again?
I don't know. That's what I was trying to figure out. I said, why?
Okay. Let's talk about the problems with this. One, the pay-per-view was 2 weeks ago. There's your first problem.
Right.
Two, the match wasn't very good.
It was like I said, it was the match that just really ended the show on a downer.
Three, you only announced this a week ahead of time.
Right. But isn't this how what we've seen from AEW before in the way that they build and promote matches? It seems so haphazard. I sense a lack of forward planning, a lack of planning ahead. Maybe
Don't
I'm wrong,
mention
but
that around Tony
it sure
Khan.
feels like it's cobbled together at the last minute, like like the last couple of years of Monday Nitro. Maybe not quite that bad, but pretty close sometimes.
It gets pretty close sometimes, I'm sure, but like the difference, and I still say this is what will keep AEW in business as long as they want to be. One, Tony has an infinite money glitch of a life, and two, their in-ring product, like the wrestling, like the action, is too high of a quality for them to just die. Like people forget that is part of what has kept TNA alive for so long. Even when the show is completely sucked, you could rely on at least a few good matches.
Yes,
Like
correct.
you you could rely on some guys even in the dark years of TNA to go out there and kill it. Even in the Hogan years, you had Austin Aries and AJ
Right,
was there for a good part of it, and Bobby Roode was there, and Joe, though he was
right.
horribly misused,
I mean,
was there.
as close as Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff came to completely destroying TNA, they weren't able to get it done. And thankfully, they're still around, and I think they're doing some interesting stuff nowadays.
Well, Hulk Hogan's still. Oh, we're going to talk about Hulk Hogan in a minute because, boy, howdy, I don't know if you've heard this story, but we have a weekly Hulk Hogan update that is going to make people scream. Anyway, um, yeah, dude, the only good thing Bischoff ever did for TNA was Aces and Eights.
Yeah.
That was Bischoff's idea. All the
That's
credit
where we
goes.
got to see Gallows and Anderson featured probably in their most prominent time in TNA.
Well, other than when they went there during the pandemic, but they really worked AEW more than TNA at that point.
Right.
Because remember, that's when TNA and AEW were buddy buddy. That has completely
And
changed. Man,
they were just released by WWE a few weeks ago, were they not?
yeah,
Again, this is like the
I,
third or fourth time they've been let go.
yeah. So I want to talk briefly about that, and then we'll loop back around to AEW here. I think the
Sure.
Good Brothers are going to go back to Japan.
Makes sense.
Here's why. Their logic will be the only place we haven't been fired, released, uh, unpaid, or in some way schmaz is Japan.
Right.
We like Japan because they've gone on record in saying they love Japan. They loved working there. They
Obviously,
loved
the
living
fans of
there.
Japan love them too. I think that the fans of Japan appreciate what they have to offer more than the American fans do now. Definitely.
And they can go to Japan and be like the second or third biggest tag team over there and probably make about the same amount of money,
They'll pay
maybe a
good
little more.
money and not have as heavy a schedule too.
I mean, it depends. The Japan schedule can get pretty heavy, but like Anderson probably has a singles run left in him if he wants to do singles in Japan. Because let's not forget, Carl Anderson had a pretty good singles career in New Japan before he ended up
Oh
teaming
yeah,
with
let's go
Anderson.
back a few years.
Yeah, he like won the junior heavyweight title, I'm pretty sure. He for sure won the US title. Like, he's a really good wrestler. Gallows, despite his size disadvantage, and I do think in this modern day and age, being as big and as bulky and as kind of awkward moving as Gallows is, that hinders you now, and he's kind of found a way around it because he's awkward, but he makes it work. Russ, do you want to hear the Hulk Hogan story?
Yes, is this about the promotional tour for his beer?
Yes.
I did read an article. I think that it may be the one you're going to reference. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm going to pull up an article just to um just to here. This is from the Daily Wire. The headline reads Hulk Hogan cuts Montgomery meet and greet short, leaves fans hurt. Quote, don't meet your heroes, end quote.
Right.
And it, if anybody, okay, Hulk Hogan was going to meet 250 people originally at this meet and greet. Okay. That was the original number. Then at the last minute, they cut it down to 200. And then right around the 100 to 150 mark, Hogan just gets up and leaves.
Yep. Just walk out.
By the way, Hogan was 2 hours late for this event. You can't make this up.
And then wonder why he gets booed.
Real scammer beer. That's what we're going to rename Real American Beer. Anyway, Russ, are you excited for Dynamite? Because I'm not.
Not really, to tell you the truth. I can't say. I mean, I'll watch it, but I can't think of. Remind me again, what are the matches we got for sure Wednesday night?
I don't
We got
remember
the
off the top of
we
my
got
head.
the title match, rematch, I should say,
Right, we have the rematch too soon.
which is some kind of street fight.
Yeah, and they're in Omaha,
An
which
Omaha street fight. Oh man, they're going to be bashing each over the head with you know corn cobs.
I'm trying to find the card for this week's Dynamite, and I'm struggling to find it. I'm just gonna go on their Twitter. That should show me it. By the way,
Yes.
was Collision on Sunday this week?
No, it was on Saturday.
Oh, I swear they were advertising Collision for Sunday, but
No, I believe it was on Saturday night, but it's a show that was not very memorable.
now, Russ, when you say not very memorable, do you mean like normal Collision not very memorable, or do you mean like
Yeah,
why did I waste my time?
yeah. It was like
Okay.
normal.
See, Collision is so bad most of the time. That's my problem with it. That's why I don't watch it, folks. Anybody that wonders why doesn't Ben watch Collision? Because it sucks.
Yeah.
Russ, what is your honest opinion of Collision?
Uh it's uh it's a Saturday night wrestling program which is not even 10% as enjoyable as WCW Saturday night used to be back in the old days. It's all right, but Saturday night in general is not, for me, it's not a good night for watching anything on primetime TV. Saturday night is a night for not watching TV, usually.
Yeah, I still cannot find the card for this week's Dynamite. The only thing I know about for sure is the street fight. So, just to preview AEW's next couple buildings here, I like to do this with you because it kind of gives us an idea of what to watch out for here. So, in Omaha, I believe the building they're in is about 8,000. I believe that's what that building is. I'm confirming that. Um, so the building that AEW is running this week is actually about half of what I said. It's about between 4,000 and 4,300.
Small crowd.
Small crowd. The next week, Russ, they're in St. Paul. Friend of the show, Devlin, is going to this show.
Right.
Would you like to know how big the building they're running in St. Paul is, Russ?
Let me guess. 8,000.
5,000.
Okay. Well, that's good they're booking smaller venues.
It is. But I'm going to be very curious how they do in St. Paul because every time they've gone to Minnesota, they've done incredibly well. I don't know that that's going to be the case this time just because they've burnt so much goodwill in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
But I just, I could not believe that they were actually going to do Copeland Moxley again on free television
Yeah.
2 weeks later. They have to schmoz this into a four-way, right? At the pay per
Uh,
view.
yeah. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean,
They,
what was it
they,
last week? We had Cope with Jay White against the Death Riders. Is that what we
yeah,
had?
yeah.
You see, when you have to struggle with your memory to try to remember what the main event was on a show that you watched just a couple days ago, that's a company that's not making a lasting impact on my imagination, you might say.
They're not making a lasting impact in a lot of ways right now. Um, my favorite part about AEW continues to be Will Ospreay. I just think the dude's incredible. That guy is an alien sent from another planet to be a professional wrestler. Like, holy crap, that guy's incredible. At any rate, folks, that's going to about do it for us. Russ, final thoughts on Raw.
Not too bad. I am looking forward to WrestleMania. See where they're going to go. They got about a little over 5 weeks to get everything set up. Oh, by the way, they did announce the date of Backlash, which I think is May 10th.
That is correct. And they're going to be in St. Louis for that.
St. Louis, Missouri. What a great wrestling town that is. Oh, that's a
I'm
Saturday night show, too.
I'm really disappointed that they're not doing international backlash again. I thought international backlash was awesome. They did
Hmm.
Puerto Rico, they did France.
Oh, I
I thought
know.
they should I thought they should have done something crazy this year where
I
it's
think
like
the Puerto Rico show may have possibly, yeah, I think it was in the running for best show of the year.
it was
Yeah,
that
it
year.
was definitely good. Although,
It exceeded
like I said, St. Louis it's a good wrestling town. There's always a good traditional wrestling crowd there. And they will not be afraid to voice their displeasure with Tony's booking if they don't like it.
well, Tony or Triple H, either one of them.
Right. Yeah. Either way. Yeah.
Um,
They talk about the Chicago fans being kind of rough. I always thought St. Louis, Missouri, that's a rough town. It's a tough town, and it's an old wrestling town.
well, let's not forget the reason St. Louis is so hard on wrestling now is because in the territory days they got dealt a bad hand. St. Louis had it rough back then. Like
Right. It
they
was probably
had
one
some,
of the worst places to be, except for old Kansas City.
and even Kansas City might have been better than St. Louis was at the time because St. Louis for a while especially was just the worst territory in the country. Like if you think AEW now is bad, go back and watch St. Louis territory stuff and you will see what actual bad wrestling television is. That is some of the worst shit
Mhm.
ever put on television. And they ran forever.
Oh, Kansas City out of Central States out of Kansas City back in the 70s was pretty awful too. We had some really, really horrible people that were wrestlers, people like Jerry Brown and Bruiser Bob Sweetan that ended up being basically really disgusting criminals in their personal life.
And then, of course, who can forget when the AWA kind of took control of the Midwest and it looked like that's how it was going to be that
Right.
WWF would control the Northeast.
Well, at one time, AWA was great because I think, as far as old school champions, I think Nick Bockwinkel's one of the best ever. I think his promos are still stand up today. I think his promos are Very interesting. A kid could learn a lot of new vocabulary words by watching Bockwinkel promos.
Well, what's funny, and I know we're going on a total tangent here. We were going to wrap up, but we're on a total tangent. This is good content, though. This is
Yeah,
good. I like this. Uh, as I was saying, in the territory days, it looked like the AWA was going to have everything pretty much west of the Mississippi, with the exception of Texas. And it looked like Crockett was going to take the Southeast and parts and a little bit north there too, maybe like just hedging into WWE territory, like into the Carolinas, but not quite getting in there. And then WWE was going to control the Northeast.
right.
But what happened was Vince started pulling people off television,
That's
buying
right.
people off.
Well, when the WWF was purchased by Vince and became the WWF, that's when he not only started buying up all the talent, but he bought up television contracts and he brought up contracts for, booking contracts for venues. He worked to get like right of first refusal for dates from certain venues around the country that his competition already had control of. And if you're running a small radio TV station and you're playing Crockett every week, and somebody comes along from the WWF and says, "Hey, we'll pay you $1,000 to play this tape," what are you going to do?
Especially back then, $1,000 was a lot
Now,
of money.
I don't know if that's an accurate amount, but I know that it was a really really good money for them to drop Crockett and go with McMahon.
Because let's not forget, at the hottest period of Crockett, right, in Crockett Promotions' height, they were having their money stolen. Let's not forget that. They were being they were being scammed by their financial guy. People forget this about Crockett.
Well,
The
sure,
reason Crockett had to sell is because his financial guy gave him an estimate that was $2 million under where they actually were. So they were 2 million in the red.
man, that makes my debt sound pretty good.
And that's why they had to sell to Turner. They had a natural relationship with Turner. They were already on the superstation. And they had to sell.
Mhm.
Crockett had to sell. And he didn't want to sell to Vince. Because let's not forget, Vince had another opportunity to buy WCW and prevent the whole thing when Crockett went tits up.
Yes,
Because let's not forget, Crockett didn't just go tits up once. He bailed himself out for
right.
about 6 months, and then he went tits up again. But Crockett was the king of kicking the can down the road in terms of financial trouble. I have never seen a promotion other than maybe TNA. Like, if you go back and read what Jim Crockett Promotions was in its last 12 months, like, it was bad. Like, they were broke. Like, they didn't
Mhm.
have money.
They
Now,
didn't
they
have the
went,
money to pay their people, did they?
and this is around the time Dusty starts looking for the exit door to go back to Florida,
Right.
which didn't last very long because WCW happens pretty quick after this. But Dusty starts looking for the door. Rick goes to WWE, I believe, the second time.
Right.
That doesn't last very long. He comes back, they're WCW again, or they're WCW when he comes back. But I think that WWE run for him only lasted 6 months. And when he left, they were still Crockett. And when he came back, they were WCW.
Hmm.
And
Well, what was so remarkable about that too is he showed up in WWF with the Crockett belt around his waist. That was a good gimmick. It really
it
was. And
was.
they if he had stuck around, they could have actually made something out of it. but he was there and gone so quick. It just seemed like an anomaly in the history of the WWF. There's this weird period there around
There's this
1990
weird
when Ric Flair was there.
period where he pops up and then he's gone again
Right.
for like 10 years. Um, and so what happens is, was it 89 or 90 when Crockett gets bought out? I don't remember the exact year.
Yeah. I can't either, but
When did Turner buy WCW? 1988.
oh, earlier than I thought then.
It
So
was late.
and then they left the NWA National Board and went
Yep.
independent, and that's when World Championship Wrestling. And a lot of us WCW fans got to remember those first few years in the early '90s. Their shows weren't any better than the WWF. In fact, in a lot of ways, they were worse. They had some horrible, horrible stuff. They were trying
They
to imitate Vince McMahon's style and doing a horrible job of it.
they really goofed it up for the first couple of years. They end up tripping and falling into Kevin Nash and Scott Hall.
Right?
They kind of fell into Hogan too. And
Sure.
here's how they fell into Hogan. Vince didn't want Hogan anymore.
Yes.
He wanted Hogan gone to Hollywood or to anywhere but WCW.
Right.
So what did Hulk Hogan and his fucking infinite loyalty do?
Goes to WCW and he got a big paycheck. But you got to remember, he didn't really take off until the NWO gimmick started because those first 2 years in WCW, Hulk Hogan was awful. I mean,
He was
fucking awful.
he was the worst thing on the show.
Oh, it was almost unwatchable. It was unbearable. And like that first match, he beats Ric Flair for the WCW World Title. I remember me and my friends were just shaking our heads in disgust. We thought it was the biggest bunch of bullshit we'd ever seen.
So by the time they get Nash and Hall, which it could be argued the only reason they got Nash and Hall is because of the merchandise sales of Hulk Hogan's merchandise.
Yeah. It was the money, I'm sure, yeah.
It was guaranteed money, which was unheard of back then. It was fully guaranteed ironclad money. So even if, like what happened, Turner sold WCW or WCW went out of business, Nash and Hall were still going to get paid.
Yeah,
Nash and Hall jump
absolutely.
ship, and away we go into the Attitude Era. Isn't it crazy how many parallels you can draw between now and, like, in a weird way, right before the Attitude Era? Like,
Yeah,
right before. Now, the television isn't as bad as it was right before the Attitude Era. People forget, like, a year before, like, 1994 WWF is some of the worst,
sure.
most awful television you can watch. I don't recommend it.
Well, unless you like Duke the Dumpster Drozy and TL Hopper and
Wasn't there a garbage man somewhere?
yeah, Duke the Dumpster Drozy.
Oh, and the
He's
pig
a bad
farmer?
wrestler, but it was a goofy gimmick.
The pig farmer? Don't forget about the pig farmer.
Oh, that's Henry O. Godwin, Phineas I. Godwin. Yeah,
He
everybody was a profession. You had the tax collector, you had the pig farmer, you had the repo man. All
worth
that
noting
bullshit.
fit worth noting Phineas Godwin was not a bad professional wrestler.
Oh no, no. I remember when I used to enjoy them. They were Shanghai Pierce and Tex Schlesinger over in WCW, and I did see a live match one time in Des Moines. It was a very good match at a house show in Des Moines. I saw Henry Godwin wrestle Bret Hart, and Bret Hart's never had a bad match with anybody. It was excellent. He made he beat him, but he made Henry Godwin look like $1 million.
Well, after that 20-minute tangent, Russ, I think we
All
should
right.
end the show here. We've given everybody our history lesson for the week.
They think these old farts don't know what they're talking about.
Folks, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, follow on the TikTok.
Yes, please do.
And Russ, I'd give Raw a B plus. Would you agree with that?
I'll give it a B.
All right. That's it. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Damon, play our music.